Before the testimony from David Pecker today, there was that tense hearing on whether the former president violated the gag order he's under. Prosecutors cited 10 separate incidents they say were violations since that order was issued last month by the judge. We're still waiting the judge's decision, but the hearing did not go well for the defense. Judge Rashan repeatedly showing frustration with defense attorney Todd Blanche for failing, he said, to offer any facts in his defense of his client's social media posts and reposts about two likely witnesses and jurors. Judge Rashan saying at one point, Mr. Blanche, you are losing all credibility. There's some of the posts that prosecutors flagged as violations. This one on April 10th from Trump on Truth Social, writing, look what was just found with the fake news. Will the fake news reported? It was above a photo of a 2018 statement from Stormy Daniels denying her relationship with Trump. Another 3 days later, trashing Michael Cohen, the witness, asking, quote, has disgraced attorney and felon Michael Cohen been prosecuted for lying? And 4 days after that, a repost of a Fox host slamming prospective jurors alleging undercover liberal activists are, quote, lying to the judge in order to get on the Trump jury. The prosecution also brought up this remark from the former president outside the courtroom just yesterday.
When are they going to look at all the lies that Cohen did in the last trial? He got caught lying in the last trial. So he got caught lying, pure lying. And when are they going to look at that?
Prosecutors said that, too, was another violation. They'd be filing another order to show cause today. And just tonight, Trump blasted Cohen again in an interview with a local station in Philadelphia, calling him a liar with no credibility. Prosecutors are seeking the maximum $1,000 fine for each violation. Back with our panel. Also joining us is Olivia Nuzzi, Washington correspondent from New York Magazine, and former Pennsylvania federal judge John E. Jones. Judge Jones, let me start with you. What do you make of the judge's rebuking Trump's attorney like that?
Well, I'll tell you what, Anderson, I've been in this situation, and under relentless questioning from a judge, sometimes an attorney is just out of ammo. And I think that's exactly what happened today with Todd Blanche. And, you know, he can't retreat. He's got a difficult client. There's no question in my mind that former President Trump violated the gag order, at least in part. Sometimes an attorney will look at you when you're the presiding judge, and you know his eyes kind of convey, "Look, Judge, I got nothing. I mean, I've used all the ammo that I have." Your attorney panelists will identify with that.
You've gotten that signal from an attorney every now and then.
Yeah, well, you know, they will, and it's sort of a beseeching look. Sometimes I go to sidebar and say, "Look, I know, Judge, you want me to answer that question. I've given you all that I have at this point." So it was like the charge of the light brigade. He had to just keep going at that point until finally Merchan got frustrated and made that comment about his credibility. I do have some empathy for him because, frankly, you know, a lot of that was indefensible, and I don't think he had an explanation that he could render for it in good conscience.
Judge, the Secret Service and other law enforcement are preparing for the very long shot possibility, I should say, that Trump might be incarcerated for violating the gag order. It's highly unlikely it would ever get to that point, isn't it?
He's not going to incarcerate him, I don't think, under any circumstances. You know, he could make a statement and assess a financial penalty on some of the violations. I think the problem, as I said yesterday, is that he's going to have to tighten this order up because there are instances where there is a collision between, you know, the former president's First Amendment rights and what's happening here. There's another point that I would make here. I don't follow Michael Cohen on social media, but you know, if I were the judge, I might call the prosecution aside and say, "Look, you know, I know he's not your client, but he's your witness. Tell him to stop, posting." Because in a sense, you know, he's inciting the former president. That's not a justification for violating the gag order, but you know, fair is fair, and I think you have to manage this thing as it moves forward as the presiding judge. I think that's one option. He could also drop a gag order on everybody, I suppose.
Ellie, do you think any other defendant would have been thrown in jail?
That's pretty drastic. I mean, let's understand, first of all, it's very rare to have a gag order in place in any case. This type of defiance, though, is something I've never seen before. To have somebody I think the judge is clearly going to find most or all of these now 11 alleged violations to have been met. The big question I have is, what's the judge going to do the next step? Because there will be a next chapter. I'm sure this will not be the end of Donald Trump
He
violating
was
this
talking
gag
about
order.
Michael Cohen on the way to
Right.
this gag order hearing this morning.
He's
That's when he recorded the interview at the local Philadelphia station. Trump did that this morning and then got in the motorcade and drove to the courthouse and had this contentious hearing where he was seated in the
The judge has an option. Please,
His
Elodie.
argument is not that he's not violating the gag order. His argument is primarily that he shouldn't be under a gag order, right? So he's not trying to say this is not what I'm doing. He's trying to say I'm the president.
Olivia,
It doesn't matter.
you were in the courtroom yesterday. Generally speaking, what is the dynamic like between the judge and the Trump legal team?
It's very interesting. You can see that he's just getting totally exhausted by dealing with them. And the other day, they had kind of a smackdown moment where the judge said at a certain point, I'm paraphrasing, but at a certain point, you were just going to have to accept my decisions and accept that this is my courtroom, basically. And it seemed like it reached another moment of blows today where the judge is just losing patience.
Well, that means, in my opinion, that means the defense is doing their job. When the judge is like, oh, there's too many motions, Anderson, the last case I was involved in, where the judge said there was too many motions, there was a conviction, and guess what? The appellate court reversed on those too many motions and threw the case out. It wasn't even a reversal. They threw it out altogether. But on the flip side, and I agree with the federal judge who's with us, there are some things that a client does that are indefensible. And you have to walk that line. I mean, you never want a trial judge on the second day of testimony to say, counselor, you're losing credibility.
That's not
You cannot lose credibility with a judge or a jury.
Let me,
Once that happens, you're done.
Judge Jones, go ahead.
There's another point, and again, I think the attorneys in the panel will identify with this. There's nothing more maddening for a lawyer. I don't care whether it's a prosecutor or a defense attorney to have somebody sitting next to you, buzzing in your ear and banging your shoulder and poking you and passing notes to you when you're trying to concentrate. In this case, Todd Blanche is trying to concentrate on incoming fire from the judge, and he's got the former president of the United States buzzing in his ear about what's happening. This is a miserable position, for an attorney to be in, and it's just really rough, to get through it. This was not a good day, for Todd Blanche. I hope he gets a good night's sleep because this is tough. I mean, this is the kind of client who has lawyers waking up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat. I mean, this is a very, very difficult situation.
This is why lawyers have Ativan prescription.
Yes. Todd Blanche doesn't have a judge problem. He has a client problem. I mean, the issue here is he has multiple audiences. He's trying to win the case in front of the jury, but he's got to please Donald Trump. And a lot of what he said, I thought of this in opening statements as well, where he was talking about calling him President Trump and, talking about, enormous deference to his client. That is not necessarily a way to win this case, but it is a way to keep your client happy, and that's going to be a challenge for Blanche throughout this whole endeavor.
Arthur, Trump says that these alleged violations were political speech. Even if they were, doesn't a judge's gag order supersede that?
Yes, I mean, they do, but it just goes down to should there be a gag order to begin with. And again, with our colleague who's the judge said, Michael Cohen is kind of, baiting him. I think that's going to work to the defense. He'll be cross-examined on all these most recent tweets and all of that stuff. But, it is, look, I was in that position with the Harvey Weinstein trial. We had a gag order on us, and every day after court, were you leaving? We can't say a word. And there's Gloria Allred having these huge press conferences, beating the heck out of us, glorifying the witnesses. The jurors are walking past her as she's saying these wonderful things about these witnesses, and we didn't say a word. But I think what you said, I've never seen someone violate a gag order the way Donald Trump. I mean, we were very careful. And to Mr. Weinstein, like he didn't even think about violating the gag
I'm sure
order.
Trump is going to love being compared to Harvey Weinstein.
Well,
Yeah, I'm not sure that that's the comparison.
I want to play the soundbite I mentioned in the intro of Trump again attacking Michael Cohen. It's from an interview he did today with our affiliate WPBI.
Michael Cohen is a convicted liar, and he's got no credibility whatsoever. And he was a lawyer, and you rely on your lawyers.
Okay, that seems like pretty clear.
Pretty straightforward.
It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
The places where it's not so straightforward is the retweets and the amplifications, perhaps, of his opinion, maybe, but maybe not threats or of violence. I mean, I think what the judge mentioned, maybe there is room here to put a little bit more of a barrier around what exactly is in this gag order, because right now a lot of things could qualify, and it almost seems like Trump is pushing the boundaries of what it all could be just to kind of get under the skin of the court and to prove that he is not subject to this gag order. Perhaps a more specific gag order that it really does limit Trump and the threats that he can make against witnesses and people who are part of this proceedings might tamp down on Trump's sort of defiance instinct, which really kicks in moments
What
like
the
this.
judge is so worried about and made clear when he was expanding the gag order is this affecting the judicial proceedings and throwing off the entire case. And we've already had 2 jurors who are concerned about the media attention this case is getting and the scrutiny that they are getting after, as the prosecutors are pointing out today, some hosts on other networks were being really detailed about the details of who these jurors were, what they did, where they live. And so it is a real concern about juror safety as well. And Trump is now commenting on the jury.
Judge, and then we have to go.
I think from the judge's standpoint, I would just say, I talked about from Todd Blanche's standpoint, this is a really rough situation for Judge Marchand. I mean, he has to be super clinical in doing this and be really careful how he deals with the whatever his order is going to be in the sanctions case. And tough stuff for the judge too.
Yeah. More special coverage coming up after a quick break. We're going to talk to a former prosecutor who investigated